The Samsung Tab A7 and Tab A7 Lite were designed with the goal of offering an affordable and capable Android tablet. So was Samsung successful, or did they make too many compromises in order to keep the costs down? Looking at these two tablets side by side, the Tab A7 Lite is noticeably smaller. I'll talk more about the quality of the display in just a moment, but as far as the size, the Tab A7 Lite has an 8.7-inch display versus 10.4 inches on the Tab A7. From a portability standpoint, the Tab A7 Lite is smaller and it's lighter, but it's still too big for me to fit in my pocket like a phone, so I just end up treating it like any other tablet and putting it in my bag. Now, on the other hand, it is more comfortable to hold, and you may like this size better if you have smaller hands. The Tab A7 is a more traditional size for a tablet, and it's similar in size to the Tab S7 or the iPad 9. From a design standpoint, there are some similarities and then some important differences. So both tablets have rounded corners and a rounded edge on the back. The Tab A7 Lite has thinner bezels on the sides and then larger ones on the top and the bottom, while the Tab A7 has the same size bezels all the way around. Now, the bezels on the Tab A7 seems quite big for the size of the device, and I wonder if Samsung could have made the tablet slightly smaller while maintaining the same display size by making the bezels smaller. Both tablets have a power button and volume controls on the right, a USB-C port for charging and accessories, a 3.5mm headphone jack so you can use wired headphones or a headset for gaming, and a micro SD card slot which can be used to expand the internal storage by up to 1 TB. Now, I'll talk more about this later on in the video, but the camera on the Tab A7 is positioned on the long side versus the short side on the Tab A7 Lite, and we're getting 4 speakers on the Tab A7 versus 2 on the A7 Lite. Both tablets use the front-facing camera for biometric authentication with face recognition, and both have worked really well for me. There is no fingerprint sensor incorporated into the display or the power button of either of these tablets, but you can authenticate with a pattern, PIN, or password. Now let's get to the quality of the displays, starting out with the specs, and then we'll talk about how they impact real-life use. So the Tab A7 Lite has an 8.7-inch display with a resolution of 1340 by 800, 5:3 aspect ratio, and the pixel density of 179 pixels per inch. The Tab A7 has a larger 10.4-inch display with a noticeably higher resolution of 2000 by 1200, the same 5:3 aspect ratio, but a higher pixel density at 224 pixels per inch. Okay, so essentially the only advantage that I'm going to give the A7 Lite is that it's more compact. The A7 gives you a larger picture when you're watching video, a higher resolution so you can watch at full HD. It also shows you more of a web page without needing to scroll, and it's a better option for multitasking with 2 apps open side by side. Now, neither is particularly bright, so you may struggle when you're viewing dark scenes in movies or when you try to use them in brighter conditions. Now, both tablets will work for viewing content, but the Tab A7 has an all-around sharper and better looking display, while the glass itself seems less susceptible to fingerprints. There are also some critical differences when it comes to gaming, which I'll talk about in a minute, but first let's look at processing power. Now, it's important to remember that these are budget tablets, so I'm not comparing their performance to flagship models, and at the same time, I want to make sure that you know what it's like to use these before you spend your money. So first, for those of you who are interested in benchmarks, for single core performance, the A7 Lite scored 158 versus 316 on the A7. And for multi-core, the A7 Lite scored 861 versus 1405. So in both cases, the A7 scored significantly higher. And if you're not new to my channel, you may have noticed that often when I compare flagship models, I don't overvalue additional performance because for the most part, they can all do what the average person needs. Now in this case, since we're looking at budget tablets, the difference in processing power is meaningful. The Tab A7 Lite's MediaTek MT8768 isn't capable of providing a smooth and lag-free user experience when opening and switching between apps, playing games, or using a high number of browser tabs. And while the Snapdragon 622 on the A7 isn't a powerhouse by any means, it is quite more capable and the user experience is noticeably better. Now, my 64GB Tab A7 Lite comes with 4 gigs of RAM, while the same size A7 only comes with 3GB. And even though it has less RAM, switching between apps or tabs on the A7 was still less laggy. Now, I know that Samsung had to compromise in order to keep the cost down, so while I understand why we didn't get 6GB of RAM on the A7, it would have been nice to get 4. And when we look at the battery life, the Tab A7 Lite comes with a 5100 mAh battery versus 7040 on the larger Tab A7. I was able to get about 9 to 12 hours of battery life on both if I'm surfing the web and watching video. But as you'd expect, that number quickly went down as soon as I started playing more demanding games like PUBG or COD Mobile. Now both tablets offer 15-watt fast charging, but neither one comes with a 15-watt charging adapter, so you'd have to purchase one separately if you want to maximize charging speed. Now before we get to gaming, I want to quickly talk about the camera and audio system. So both tablets offer an 8-megapixel rear-facing camera that's capable of 1080p video at 30 frames per second. Now, the rear-facing cameras are definitely not great, but they're okay. And to be honest, I almost never use these cameras on my tablets because the ones on my phones are better, and the phone is a much more comfortable device to use for photography and video. The front-facing camera on the Tab A7 is 5 megapixel versus a disappointing 2 megapixel camera on the Tab A7 Lite. Now both cameras will work for video calls, but don't expect flagship level selfie quality. Now for me, I only use them for video calls where there's an important difference with the location of the camera. So on the Tab A7 Lite, the camera is on the short edge or the top, just like on any of the iPad models. On the Tab A7, the camera is on the long edge. So when the tablet is in a case or a stand, the camera is located in the center and it's higher up off the table, which provides a better angle for video calls. As far as the speakers, the two speakers on the Tab A7 Lite are actually quite decent, especially when you turn on Dolby Atmos. But the Tab A7 has 4 speakers for noticeably fuller audio with more presence. Now both are plenty loud for a tablet, so that's not going to be an issue, but if you listen to movies or music a lot, the A7 is the way to go. Now both tablets also have a 3.5mm headphone jack, which is great for wired headphones or for a wired gaming headset. And speaking of gaming, this is another area where there's a pretty noticeable difference between the two tablets, both as a function of the display and processing power. So while I was able to play games like PUBG, COD Mobile, and Asphalt on both tablets, the gaming experience was better on the Tab A7. Gameplay was smoother, there was less lagging, and less stuttering. When playing PUBG, the Tab A7 Lite can only go up to medium for frame rate, but the Tab A7 can go to high. Now, while I like to play on smooth and then extreme or 90 FPS for devices that offer it, being able to move from medium to high is noticeable during gameplay. Now, of course, less demanding games will run with no problems on both. So for me, it comes down to a choice between the more portable option and the better overall gaming experience. I also paired my Xbox controller with both tablets and then used it with Xbox Game Pass, in which case both tablets were able to run any of the cloud-based games that I played. Again, this is where you need to choose between portability or a larger and better display. Personally, I prefer the Tab A7 because things look better and they're easier to see. Now, normally I talk about the keyboard and stylus options, but neither of these are compatible with Samsung's S Pen. And when it comes to keyboard cases, the Tab A7 is the better option because the larger device allows for a larger keyboard, which is more comfortable to type on. And of course, you can always use an external keyboard with both. Now let's look at price and the overall value, and I'm going to use the prices from the Samsung store, but a lot of times you can get better prices by using the links in the description. The Tab A7 Lite starts at $160 for 32 gigabytes with 3 gigs of RAM, and then goes up to $200 for 64 gigabytes with 4 gigs of RAM. The Tab A7 starts at $230 for 32 gigs, $280 if you want 64 gigs, and both come with 3 gigabytes of RAM. And when we look at the compromises that Samsung had to make on these tablets, we have to make a choice. If we want a super affordable and small, basic tablet for watching YouTube, surfing the web, doing some social media, playing less demanding games or cloud-based games, and a responsive user experience is not a priority for us, the Tab A7 Lite can get the job done. Now, if we want a larger and better display, better audio, a slightly improved camera system, more processing power, which will actually impact general use and gaming experience, and we have that additional 70 to 80 bucks in our budget, the Tab A7 is definitely the way to go. I think it's a better overall value and will serve you better moving into the future. Now you should watch how the Tab A7 compares with the Tab A8. Hopefully this video was helpful. Click on my face to subscribe. You know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.